we'll get started, everybody. My name is Celeste Clark. I am the director of the Raymond Coalition for Youth, and I want to thank all of you for coming and being a part of our evening tonight. We've worked really hard to put something together that covers almost all of the basis of things that our young people are dealing with. The Raymond Coalition for Youth has been around for over 20 years now, and we started in reaction to the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data that was collected back in 2000 that showed that Raymond students reported higher rates of substance misuse compared with the state of New Hampshire students' data. So that was something that was of concern to us at the time. We had the superintendent, the chief of police, business owners, healthcare facilities, and parents who came together, and then we realized that if we wanted to do something to help impact our children and our schools, we had to involve them in the process. And that's how Raymond Coalition for Youth started. Our young people from the very beginning have been a part of the coalition, have put together the programming that we've put in place. I can tell you that our young people that are here tonight contributed to the presentation. Some of them are speaking, if not all of them are speaking, so we're very proud of them. They are actively involved in everything that we do, and that's what makes what we do a success, I think. I think I speak for a lot of people who echo that as well. One of the reasons we're doing this evening's presentation is the coalition used to offer a diversion program. A diversion program was for students or young people who got in trouble with the law for using alcohol or marijuana at the time. And instead of going to court and paying a fine and whatever could happen with that, I don't know all the particulars of that, that's why we have the prosecutor with us tonight. But we would offer a diversion program, and instead of getting punished for the mistake that they made, they would come to a 4-week class and they would have to bring a parent or a guardian with them to be part of that 4-week class. And when we were teaching it, one of our facilitators is in the room with me tonight, parents overwhelmingly said, why didn't anybody tell us this ahead of time? Why are we learning about these things now when our children got into trouble instead of prior to that? And I know a lot of us take for granted that some people know the law, but that's not necessarily true all the time. So some of the information we're providing for you tonight is in response to a Did You Know survey that we sent out, and Will's going to present on that. And then I'm going to present on some of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data that we have from now. I do want to thank, first of all, the people who are making tonight happen. We have funding from our drug-free community funding. We have funding from our Seacoast Public Health Network. And we have Communities That Talk funding also that are helping to support putting this evening together. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do without our speakers from the DEA, Raymond Police Department, and the Raymond School District, because the coalition really is about all of us working together. So with that, I will introduce them. We have Paul Spira from the New England DEA. We have Chief Mike LaBelle from the Raymond Police Department. Lonnie McCaffrey, he is the prosecutor for the Raymond Police Department. Over in the corner is Kristen Doherty. She's our student assistance person at the high school. And Abby Massey is in the back. She's our student assistance person at the middle school. And for all of you, this is Pam Baker. She is our youth action program coordinator at the middle and the high school. So she gets to work with these amazing young people weekly. I'm jealous of her. So here's some conversation to help us look at the evening and why we're here. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey is data that is completely 100% anonymous. That is given, again, since the coalition started back in 2020. We've been collecting this data every 2 years in grades 6th through 12th. We partner with the Raymond School District, and we always say that this is Raymond data. This is not our school district data. We are just very fortunate that our children are in these buildings, because it's the middle school and the high school, and the school works with us to collect this data. Again, there's zero way of connecting this back to any student. It's completely anonymous. So if we look at the middle school data, one of the reasons we're here this evening, if we look at alcohol, that went up in 2022. Again, we take it every 2 years, but because of COVID, we had to skip 2020. And we started, and we had it last year in 2022. And we just completed it a couple of weeks ago in the middle school and the high school in our district. So we'll have that data back in the fall. But as you can see, reported alcohol use amongst our young people went up 1%. Again, not a lot, but still it's something that is concerning for us. It's on our radar. Vaping marijuana, this is the first time we've ever collected this data. And working with our young people, we know that this is something that they're talking about it. And when we talk to the school administrators, vaping is an issue in the school district. So not just our school district. I do want to make sure we clarify that too. This is something that's being seen across the state of New Hampshire. We're just fortunate that we're collecting it and we have the partners in place that we can do something about it, working together to try to improve it. So we know young people were vaping marijuana, so we put that on our survey and found out that of the 3% who have reported using marijuana, 2% of them are vaping it. And this is middle school data, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. For alcohol at the middle school, when we think about prevention, prevention can be rather simple. If we reduce access to something and we increase awareness, we limit use. So all of these questions fall in line with that. So lifetime use has gone up by young people. And when we talk about use of alcohol, that is more than a few sips. So that would not be some religions or families allow young people to have a glass of wine or something else with dinner. That's part of a family culture sometimes. The question is worded so more than a few sips, which would mean their own drink of alcohol. So lifetime use by our middle school students increased by 4%. Students who report using alcohol before the age of 13, you can see that took quite a drastic jump from 13% to 22%. Past 30-day use, that would be children who report, young people, who are regular users of alcohol is what we consider 30-day use. And then we jump into the reasons why they might be using. Their perception of risk. Do they think it's harmful for them to be drinking alcohol? That dropped from 89% to 68%. Do they think it's wrong to be drinking alcohol? That dropped 3%. Do their friends think it's wrong? We think about peer pressure and young people using substances. If their friends think it's wrong, that might influence their decision to do it. That dropped to 82%. And here's the really good one. Do their parents think it's wrong? Because we know that parents and guardians have a huge impact on young people's decisions to use substances. So if parents are talking to their children about why they don't approve of it, why they think it's wrong, why they think it's dangerous, that impacts them when they go out and they're hanging around with their friends. And I can give the example of if parents think that they're keeping their kids safe by allowing them to drink in their home with them while they're home, which we do hear happens, that's lessened the wrongness right there. Kids now think it's okay. So when they're out with their friends or they're at a party or they're someplace and somebody offers it to them, they could think, well, my parents don't think it's a problem because they allow me to drink at home with them. So that's where the parents talking to their young people and making sure that they understand that they think it's wrong for young people to be drinking is very important. And then easy to get. 52% of our students think that it's easy to access alcohol. So that's something else that is concerning for us. Raymond High School students, this data actually we're kind of excited about this because it looks good. The numbers are all going in the right direction at the high school. We're going to hope that when we take this, when we get the results back from what just happened, that the numbers continue to go that way. You can see alcohol, marijuana, both of those came down. Cigarette use has gone up, and that's something that in the public health network, we're concerned about that because there's so much vaping that there is a concern that people are going to stop vaping and start turning towards cigarettes again. So that's something that we've been monitoring and have not stopped monitoring. The Raymond Coalition for Youth has a Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act grant called a CARA grant. And it's specifically to work with the DEA and our police department to limit access to heroin, opioids, and methamphetamine, actually. And in order to apply for that grant, we had to have higher than state average use, according to this survey and other data points, to even apply for it. We applied for it and we received it. So I say that just to put a framework of what's in our community and what we're dealing with and why it's so important to have these conversations and have meetings like this in the evening to provide information. So we also collect other things. We want to know if students have parents who are talking to them and have clear rules and expectations for their young people. When we talk about protective factors, these are things that keep our kids safe. These are numbers that, if they're red, they're not going in the direction that we're hoping that they would go in. So students who agree they have adults with clear rules and consequences, that number dropped. Students who have talked with a parent or guardian, that number dropped. And then as far as this being, substance misuse is not one person is responsible for that. And we want to make sure that everybody understands that nobody blames the parents or the police department or the school district. There's no pointing fingers. When we talk about substance misuse and prevention, we need to think of it as this is all of us working together. When we look around the room and we see how many people are in this room, all these people are here because they care about our young people, and we want to do something to help keep them safe. So we ask if students feel like they matter to the community, that number dropped. That's an opportunity for us to bring that number up.
Time to build a skate park.
Does anybody have any questions on any of this data before we move on to the next part? No? Okay. And this is kind of a repetitive slide, but it's a very good reminder. Again, decreasing access to something and increasing awareness helps us decrease use. And when we do it all together, we have a far greater impact. So with that, I am excited to announce our Raymond Coalition for Youth Youth Action high school member, Will Saulnier, who's going to go through the data from the survey we conducted.
So my name is William Saulnier, and many people just assume things that parents know, but we can assume, we must ask, and that's important. So only 74% of people know the legal age to buy tobacco products in New Hampshire is only 21 years old. 90% of people know that New Hampshire has a socialist law and it's illegal to provide alcohol to anyone under the age of 21 years old in your home. Only 76% of people know that providing alcohol to someone under the age of 21 is a criminal offense and is punishable by up to a year in jail or a $2,000 fine. Only 72% of people know that marijuana is decriminalized in New Hampshire, meaning that a person over the age of 18 caught with 3/4 of an ounce of marijuana or less could get a citation very much like a speeding ticket that you would mail into a fine. Only 50% of people know that the THC levels in edible marijuana products on average is 40 to 60%. It can be as high as 98%. THC is the active ingredient and produces a high and in some cases even psychosis. THC products include gummy bears, chocolates, brownies, and many more. Only 67% of people know that 6 out of 10 prescription drug pills tested by the DEA that are bought on the streets or via social media contain deadly amounts of fentanyl. Only 69% of people say they feel comfortable talking about the risks and dangers of drugs and alcohol to their teens. Only 28 say they feel a little bit comfortable. And this is today's marijuana, and you can see how kids and other people, small children, could mistake some of these for just candy and food. And on some of these, there's only small symbols, like on the Doritos package, there's a very small symbol that indicates that it has marijuana in it. So it's just shocking that these could be like so, like children could think that these are, you know, just normal candy.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
Great job. Okay, now I would like to call up our RCFY Youth Action students from the middle school. You can introduce yourself. I know not all of them are here, so they wanted to make sure all of their names were on there.
I'm Jordan Leo Claudio.
I'm Sophia Medeiros.
And I'm Kayla LaFrance.
When it comes to alcohol, we want adults to know. Our title was Adult Alcohol Use Affects the Next Generation. These are the things we think about. Think before you drink, you influence the U.S. Drinking doesn't make you cool, and adult alcohol may be easier for us to access. Children may look up to you and do the same. Children who drink may develop a drinking problem or a health issue, and they are more likely to get into trouble when they're older.
These are things we worry about. We may not feel safe around you. We might not like how you act when you're drinking, or adults could develop a drinking problem or other health issues. They sell products in ways or techniques such as stuff like this to advertise towards the youth.
These are things, oh wait, this is not me.
Is it?
Yes.
No, it's not me.
Oh, you got the wrong area.
How adults can help. Adults can be a safe place for kids to talk about alcohol or share if they have a problem. Don't misuse alcohol or use drugs in front of us. Talk with the kids in your life about the dangers of alcohol, and remember to think before you drink. Keep alcohol away from children or underage people, and remember to lock it up.
So our next guest is Chief Mike LaBelle from the Raymond Police Department. And since there's some technical things happening, I'm not doing that. I can help.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Celeste. Hello, everybody. Attorney McCaffrey made up this great slide for me here, so we're going to have that up there as I speak. This little guy hanging out behind me here is my son, Jacob. So my wife and I weren't on the same page until, we didn't compare notes until this weekend, and we both realized we had something going on Tuesday night. So Jacob got to come with Dad tonight, so that's why he's here. But my name's Mike LaBelle. I'm the police chief, and when we were preparing for this event tonight, I met with Celeste, and I asked her, what is it that you'd like me to speak about? And I thought maybe she'd want me to speak about some technical things, maybe throw up some statistics. And she said, I just want you to talk about yourself. So I said, okay, well, I guess I can do that. That's easy enough to do. So I have been the police chief since 2018. I've been on the police department since 1999. I was 20 years old when I got hired on the police department. And we'll get back to that in a second. So growing up, my dream was to play for the Boston Red Sox. And so I was a good little baseball player growing up, and I remember being a freshman in high school at Sanborn, right down the street in Kingston, New Hampshire. And I was out in center field playing JV baseball. I was 5'0", 100 nothing, and there were no fans, certainly no scouts. And I said, I think I need to reevaluate my plans, because I'm pretty sure the Red Sox aren't going to be calling. However, if they call now, I'm still available. So, I was lucky that at that point in my life, at, what was I, about 13 or 14 years old, I kind of made a decision, and I'll never forget that, that I wanted to pursue law enforcement. And the reason why I wanted to pursue law enforcement was because my father is a police officer, and I consider him to be one of my role models and mentors. And that is a key element to my success, and something that kind of ties in to what we're talking about tonight. My parents, for me, were great role models. There was no alcohol that went on in my house, in my environment when I was growing up. Neither one of them drink to this day. So that was a very healthy environment for me and my brother and my sister to grow up in. The interesting thing about that is that both my mother and my father came from parents that were alcoholics. So they decided, it's a little emotional for me a little bit to think about my parents kind of going through that stuff. But so they decided that the best choices that they could make for us was to not take part in it. So it's interesting. Some folks can pull themselves out of those situations and learn from those situations and say, that's not for me. I don't want to be like that. And get themselves into a better lifestyle. And then some people just fall into it, unfortunately. So luckily for me, my parents decided that alcohol wasn't for them, and so I grew up in that healthy environment. Where that helped me along the way is that it made my choices a lot easier as I was growing up, and I was starting to be, kids my age were starting to get involved with making those bad choices. And I was always able to think of the consequences. And when I get the opportunity to speak at the DARE graduations here, that's one of the key elements, in my opinion, to DARE class is consequences. If you can take that split second to think about what potentially could happen if I make this decision, that's going to 9 times out of 10 set you down the right path. And sometimes it's not that easy. But if you can take that moment to think of things like that, it'll help you. And I've always, luckily enough, had that ability to do that. So because I made the decision as a freshman to become a police officer, I had that goal. That was, my dream at that point. And so I made sure that I made decisions that were going to make me successful in that. Now, that wasn't easy. You are presented with all different choices as you grow up, as some of you in this room are starting to realize now. And sometimes you want to make choices based on what you think other people want you to do. And you can't do that. Because if you make a choice just because your friend is making that choice or because you want to fit in with a certain crowd, that could be a choice that could follow you for the rest of your life. And I was lucky enough to be able to step back and stay away from those types of things. Because if I wasn't, I potentially could have gotten myself into some trouble, and that would have certainly tarnished my opportunity to become a police officer. We interview a lot of candidates now that want to become police officers, and one of the questions we ask them about is what kind of things do you have in your background? And there's a lot of people that aren't able to get hired as police officers because of the fact that they made some bad choices in their lives. So it definitely follows you and affects you. So as I was growing up, I stayed away from parties. I stayed away from any type of situations where I knew I could be putting myself into a bad situation. But it wasn't that hard for me because I knew what my end goal was, and I knew what the end result hopefully was going to be for me. And I still had the ability to be able to connect with people. I certainly wasn't, an outcast in school. My daughter's 13, and she's like, "Dad, were you popular when you were in school?" I tell her I was. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't, but I think I was. But it didn't impact any of that for me, which, I was obviously really happy about. And it was kind of accepted among my group of friends, and I appreciated the fact that they accepted that. And the other funny thing about that is, as you're that age and you're growing up, the people that are important to you at that point of your life, it's very rare that you're going to stay in contact with them and that they're going to become a big part of your life. So sometimes the decisions you're making just to make others happy, those people at some point, may not even be somebody you talk to anymore, just because people go their separate ways. But anyway, when I was 20 years old, I got hired here in the police department. That was a whole new element for me, because now not only did I have myself to think about, but I represented the town of Raymond and the Raymond Police Department and law enforcement. So even though I was a police officer, I was not old enough to legally possess alcohol because I was only 20. For purposes of my job, I could, but if I was off duty and I was in a situation where alcohol was involved, I could get myself in really, really bad trouble. And that not only would make me look bad, but it would make this entire community look bad. So I was able to make good choices as far as that is concerned as well. So always think of consequences. Always think of, if you have a goal, those things aren't that far away in your life. You might think that they are, but they're not. Time goes by really quick and things will follow you. So I think in a few minutes, Attorney McCaffrey's going to get up. We're going to talk about some of the laws in the state of New Hampshire pertaining to alcohol, and we'll be able to explain whatever questions that you folks may have. But Celeste, are we doing questions now, or are we going to do that later?
We're going to do it later unless you want to do yours now.
I don't mind. I don't know if anybody has questions for me, but if not, we can move on to the next speaker. So I'll be around if anybody has questions for me. So thank you very much. Yeah. Got it. Yep.
So our next guest is Paul Spira from the DEA to speak with us about prescription drugs and anything else he would like. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Really good time slot to put me in because I'm actually going to hit on two things. Number one is what Will talked about when it came to marketing. That's a great point. I'm going to share something like that in my presentation. And then when the chief talked about prevention. So for those that don't know, not everyone knows, the DEA is the Drug Enforcement Administration. It is the federal government's we are in charge of enforcing our nation's drug laws, okay? With that being said, we are the most knowledgeable and have the most intelligence on illicit drug trafficking. So as mentioned, my name is Paul Spera. I have the distinct pleasure of overseeing all the operations here in New Hampshire. We have two offices, one in Bedford and one out in Portsmouth. So what I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking with you all about today is going to be fentanyl. Fentanyl is an opioid. It is a very, very powerful opioid. It is a synthetic opioid. The reason I bring up that is a synthetic opioid is because it is not dependent on a natural thing like heroin is, like opium, right? It has to do with wind and rain and sun and individuals to take out those crops and to convert that into a drug, heroin. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, and because it is synthetic, it is composed of chemicals, right? There is an infinite amount of supply. Which is terrible. It is a very, very powerful drug, and when there's an infinite supply of something, you see a lot of problems. So that problems are what we're going to discuss right now. So, all right guys, so this should say numbers that it doesn't say, so forgive me. In 2021 and in 2022, we had over 107,000 cases of drug poisoning in the United States. Over 107,000 people in the United States died of a drug overdose or a drug poisoning. And there's a reason I'm using the term poisoning, and it's going to come to what Will said a little in a couple of minutes. 68% of those involved a synthetic opioid, fentanyl, okay? The other 31% involved psychostimulants, primarily methamphetamine. I'm not sure what the other 1% is. It could be heroin, it could be a number of different things. Very scary. The reason why we call those a poisoning is because a lot of the people, the individuals that took it, didn't know that they were taking fentanyl, okay? Now, a lot of times for many, many years when we talk about the war on drugs or supply and demand or just don't use, which are very, very accurate, the two cartels that are making this poison, two Mexican cartels, the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel, are marketing these drugs into fake pills, okay? There has always been a stigma with people, especially Americans, about putting a needle in your arm or putting something up your nose. But we as a culture are used to taking pills. We've taken pills our whole life. So these cartels are looking to create addiction. This is no longer a supply and demand. This is these organizations looking to create a market, money, by creating and making things the most easily digestible, something that is innocent in our society, which is the taking of pills. Okay? They are marketing it for us to take. They look, and I'll show you some photos, like a Percocet, like an M30, like a Xanax bar, or like Adderall.
Hey, Paul,
Yes,
what's that 31% again?
methamphetamine, which is something I would love to talk more about. Maybe we can talk. I want to make sure that I have enough time for everyone. In 2022, the DEA seized enough fentanyl to kill every single American. We seized 51 million fake pills. 51 million fake pills. The overwhelming majority of those pills contained fentanyl. But that's not all, okay? And I'm going to jump because it's a really, really, really good point. And it goes again to marketing, because we're talking to students today. Okay? There is a large portion of these pills that we're now seizing that contain methamphetamine. Now, methamphetamine is a stimulant, while fentanyl is an opioid or a narcotic. Think of like a downer, okay? So there are people that may suffer from an ADHD type disorder that can be prescribed prescribed Adderall. Or, hey, I want to do good on a test. Hey, I need to study. And they could be taking pills that contain methamphetamine. And we are seeing that here in New Hampshire. Everything I'm showing you today, this is not Phoenix or LA or Dallas or Houston. This is here in New Hampshire. This is happening here. We are seizing pills containing fentanyl here. Same thing with meth. So we seized 57 million fake pills and 13,000 pounds of fentanyl. I don't expect you guys to be able, it's just weird to be like, okay, well, what is that? That sounds like a lot. It is. But I'm going to equate that for you, okay? This is a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl, right? That's obviously a tip of the pencil. That's obviously a very small, minute amount. That just shows you how dangerous fentanyl is. 2 milligrams of fentanyl is considered a deadly amount. 2%. Okay? So if we seized all these pills, 50 million pills, and all this fentanyl, thousands and thousands of pounds, we take that and we convert that, and it comes out to the number that I showed you before, which is we seized enough fentanyl to kill every single American. Now think about all the stuff we didn't seize, right? The DEA has 4,500 special agents across the world. Just again, is that a lot? Well, no. The New York City Police Department has over 40,000 police officers in the city. So we're 1/10 of their size. So think about how much got through and how much is in our drug supply right now. And now I'm going to jump to what the chief said, because what the chief said was phenomenal. I'm so happy to be able to go after him, which is the days of experimentation are over. They do not exist any longer. You cannot think that, and I don't think anybody would be here if they thought experimentation was okay, but I think that is a topic that we really need to have, a conversation that we really need to have, that the experimentation is over. Those days, we cannot experiment any longer. You have to think that fentanyl is in our drug supply in just about every drug. Now why, right? Why? And I'll tell you why. Fentanyl is very addictive, okay? It is so much more addictive than even addictive drugs like cocaine, right? So there are people that recreationally use cocaine. There are probably a lower number. I actually do not know the number. The DEA does not deal with that. That is, we don't deal with that. But there are people that deal with cocaine. So the thought process is, Well, why do I want a customer that comes to me every 2 weeks when he's going out to a night at the I don't know, club, bar, whatever? I want someone that comes to me every single day. So they'll put a little bit of fentanyl in the cocaine to drive addiction. To drive addiction. That is the theme, besides the prevention, besides the marketing, it is the driving of addiction. They are trying to addict Americans. And so that is really, really important that tonight, if you take anything, it's the fact that you have to think that fentanyl is in every illicit drug that people buy. There are no pills that are okay. No pills should be purchased on social media. Pills should only be purchased through a pharmacy, prescribed from a doctor. That is it. I have some fact sheets here that are laid out in the various tables that go into this. I would highly recommend that you take it. DEA.gov/1pill would be a place where you could learn even more. Does anyone have any questions?
How are you getting rid of the pills when you confiscate them? How are you getting rid of this fentanyl? Are you how is it destroyable?
Yes. So we have 8 labs throughout the United States. When we seize these pills are usually seized along with an arrest an arrest, right? So we'll arrest that individual with pills on him or in his house, and so it'll be maintained through the course of his judicial proceedings. And we take them to our lab. We are actually the DEA is actually building a lab here in New Hampshire because the issue in New England is so grave that we need to put resources here in the New England region, and New Hampshire was chosen. So after the judicial proceedings, we can actually destroy those drugs. So yes, good question.
Are we still in the 20 worst counties? Like Rockingham County, are we still in the 20 worst counties or in the country?
So I'm new. I'm new here. I don't know. That was for opioid use?
Under the Obama administration, we were classified as one of the 20 worst counties, Rockingham. That was a while ago.
That does not ring a bell. The New England the New England area has always been an opioid-centric. We've always just used opioids for whatever reason for 50 years, and I've actually sort of been researching why. But I don't know. Actually, yes.
So what can the average person, besides educating themselves, reaching out to resources, do, honestly, just to support their community and understand the severity of this drug problem? I know it's kind of broad, sorry.
I think we have come to the point where things are turning in the right direction when it comes to we can't, the DEA and law enforcement cannot arrest our way out of this problem, right? It's not something, we cannot arrest our way out of a problem. We can't just do thousands of arrests and then all of a sudden it goes away. We have to have open and honest conversations with people. For whatever reason, we have Americans, you have to have open and honest conversations, but you have to be real. Sometimes those are hard conversations to have. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this is what I'll just say. 6 out of every 10 pills with fentanyl contain a potentially lethal dose.
And that's a lethal dose.
And that's a lethal dose. So, we have to talk about experimentation and that it's just not the way to go. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that there are organizations out there, and I know this is marijuana, but there are organizations out there that are making pills that look like real pills. Those pills are the ones that are like that they're making. They're trying to create a sense of this is okay, this is fine. This is something that looks just like something I would get from my doctor.
And so you're saying you don't think like increased penalties on people doing this is not the way to solve this problem?
I can't, like, that's not the DEA's role, is to make, we have to enforce the laws. We don't, we have to, we don't make the laws, we
Right.
enforce the laws.
I'm
I mean,
in-
you're asking,
I'm in the legislative body, so what I'm saying is, do you think we need to increase penalties in New Hampshire for distribution of fentanyl?
I don't know what the penalties are in the state of New
Me
Hampshire
neither, to
right
be
now.
honest with you, but I better get into it, man.
I don't know what the penalties are in the
This
state of New
guy
Hampshire.
might.
Yeah, the distribution's felony level stuff, so, you know, your Class A felonies, stuff like that. So, you know, talking long prison sentences and things like that. How it's actually implemented in the courts, I think, depends on the case and the judge.
Right.
So I'm supposed to answer that one?
No. Well, you were saying we can't arrest our way out.
We can. I mean, we can't arrest our way out of it. We have to have a 360-degree approach, and it starts with places and events like this that get the word out, you know, of the dangers of doing this. We are being targeted. I mean, we are being targeted by organizations looking to make money. There's no other way around that.
So there's been a lot of debate up at the State House lately of these checkpoints that are being done at our northern borders, and a big debate on announcing the checkpoints. And are you seeing a lot of interdiction on our northern border?
We don't see a large portion of our drug supply coming from the northern border. We see the overwhelming majority of our drug supply coming from our southwest border. 95% of these drugs, fentanyl and methamphetamine, are crossing into our country through United States ports of entry. That's where our drug supply is coming from. They're going to distribution cities like Phoenix, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, in vast, unbelievably large amounts of weights, and then they're being sent up to places like Hartford, Connecticut, Lawrence, Massachusetts. Name those cities where they're being distributed out at the retail level. That is how our drug supply comes into the state of New Hampshire. Methamphetamine is a different example, and I'll be cognizant of the next speaker. Methamphetamine is a different example. Methamphetamine is crossing through our United States ports of entry and coming here overwhelmingly through the United States Postal Service in pound quantities. They're decreasing prices, increasing the weight that they're pushing here, trying to create a market that never existed. In the state of New Hampshire, the state of Connecticut, state of Massachusetts, we've never had an appetite for methamphetamine. And they're trying to create one. And that's how they're doing it. So that's the truth. Does anyone else have any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that opportunity to also point out on your tables on April 22nd, we have our medication take-back event that the DEA has twice a year, and we work with the Raymond Police Department. And this go-round right now, we're going to be having it at Walgreens on April 22nd, 10 to 2. It's a great opportunity to clean out your medicine cabinet and have a conversation about the importance of medication safety. Okay, with that, I am going to introduce Lonnie McCaffrey, and he's going to change his slides, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm going to change the slides, but I'll be
Thank
quick,
you.
I promise. Here we go. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Lonnie McCaffrey. I'm the prosecutor for the Raymond Police Department. Little short biography of me. I graduated criminal justice with a criminal justice degree from St. Anselm College 2 years before the chief started his law enforcement career back in 1997. I got my 11 years later, I got my law degree from Massachusetts School of Law. I was first admitted to the Mass Bar, then the New Hampshire Bar. I've been a prosecutor since 2009, starting in Litchfield, and at the current time, I'm full-time with Auburn. I'm full-time with Raymond, and I'm part-time with Auburn. Both the towns go to the Candia Court. So I'm going to go over a couple of laws with you here in the state of New Hampshire. There should be a two-sided handout on the tables so you guys can follow along and take that home with you. Wrong one. If your kids disagree and you need to break out the fact sheet for them at night. I'm gonna group it into a couple of quick groups here. Your alcohol laws, your nicotine laws. Combined with that are your motor vehicle laws. And then we have our marijuana law, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time specifically on the social host liability law. And I'm going to be going through the worksheet here. The stuff up on the screen is just the titles. There's really no other information on there. But providing alcohol to a minor is illegal in the state of New Hampshire. It is classified as what is called a misdemeanor. That means the state gets to choose whether it's a Class B misdemeanor or a Class A misdemeanor. There are some significant differences. Although both are criminal offenses, which means that if you plead guilty or are found guilty, you'll have a criminal record. Class A misdemeanor subjects you up to a year in jail, up to a $2,000 fine. Class B misdemeanor subjects you only up to a $1,200 fine, and then there's some license loss things for DUIs and stuff like that. But in both respects, it's a criminal offense. So if you're providing alcohol to kids at your house, that kind of stuff, or you're buying alcohol for minors, that's how you can end yourself up in a criminal record, maybe some jail time. I can tell you that all judges have different things where they focus on or those kind of things, and I think our judge doesn't have a really good opinion of alcohol in kids and DUIs and those kinds of things. He comes down pretty hard on that. We had Judge LaFrancois for a number of years in the court. He recently retired, and we have Judge Alfano, who's the presiding justice in the Candia Court now. The unlawful possession of alcohol, which is 17910, that has to do with the minors who are possessing alcohol, and minors can possess it in two ways. They can possess it physically, like have a beer in the car in their hand, or they can possess it by internal possession is what the slang is for it, but it's intoxication, so some kind of impairment from it. And it's pretty heavy even for the kids. First offense is a minimum $300 fine. There's a $72 penalty assessment. You can lose your license for between you can lose your license for up to 90 days for a first offense on an alcohol possession charge, having nothing to do with the motor vehicle, just straight alcohol possession. And then for second and subsequent offenses, there are more enhanced penalties, including up to a year of a license loss. In the sheet, we have transportation of alcohol by a minor, but I'm going to skip that until we get to over on some of the motor vehicle and criminal laws. Misrepresenting the age. So for young people who go and try to misrepresent their age so that they can get alcohol, that's an offense in and among itself. Again, you are guilty of a misdemeanor, which means the state gets to choose A or B, but regardless of what the state chooses, it's still a criminal offense, so that's how you can create a criminal record for yourself. If an interesting thing with the misrepresenting age, it says here, a person who falsely represents his age for the purpose of procuring liquor or beverage, and who procures such liquor or beverage. So in order to be guilty under that statute, you actually have to get the alcohol you're trying to get. So you could say, well, if I don't get it, then I'm all set, nothing happens. Wrong. If you go to the attempted unlawful possession of alcohol, if you attempt to possess it, then you're still guilty of an offense under the law. So the law does a really good way of checking all that stuff. The immunity provision is an important provision. We have similar provisions in our drug laws, but this has to do with alcohol. And it says here that no person under 21 years of age shall be arrested or prosecuted for an offense under this chapter. So what that means is it limits it to the offenses under 179. So if you're home and you're looking at your sheet, any offense that doesn't start RSA 179 is not protected on here. But it says if such person in a good faith and in a timely manner requests emergency or medical assistance to him or herself or someone else, that you're not going to be prosecuted. So you're at a house party, you made a couple bad decisions, somebody's in the tub, they're really, really sick, and everybody's like, wow, we don't want to get in trouble, while they're laying there, maybe dying or having a medical issue, you're not going to be prosecuted. So don't make a bad decision worse and let something happen bad to one of your friends. So that's where the immunity provision comes in. And that does not apply, I will tell parents, to the social host criminal liability statute, because that's under RSA 644. All right, so that is not where it's going to save you. However, there is an affirmative defense under there that I'm going to get to. So let me just make sure I'm not missing any things here. Immunity. Okay, and then I'm going to do the tobacco one real quick, and I know I'm a little out of order. But tobacco is possessing tobacco or any kind of a nicotine product, that includes vapes. It's a violation level offense. So the good news is it's a non-criminal offense. but it carries a $100 fine, some kind of an education program, and the court can also order some community service. When it comes to marijuana, I want to say that's probably the biggest change around since I've been a prosecutor. When I first started, it was a misdemeanor, but was always charged as a Class A misdemeanor, and it was targeted very heavy, just as much as the other drugs. And now it's been decriminalized here in the state of New Hampshire, which means that for different kinds, starting at 18 and 21, possession of a small amount of it, what they call personal use, is only a violation level offense. That means it's a non-criminal offense. It's also partially confidential in that we do not report that to the federal government. We don't report your convictions outside of the state or to the federal government. Sometimes, my understanding is that sometimes kids that had a small amount of marijuana were losing school loans and things like that on a federal basis because of those kind of convictions. So those actually stay in-house here in the state of New Hampshire. Now, there are some differences in the law. And I'm going to be turning everybody's attention to page 2. It's actually the last paragraph. So if you're talking about marijuana, which all of us older folks know it as, your flower, your green stuff, that you can possess at 18 if it's 3/4 of an ounce or less, and you would only be guilty of a violation. So it's not legal to possess it, but it's been decriminalized. If you have over that amount, or you are under that age, it would be a misdemeanor and handled correctly in whatever system, whether it's the juvenile or the adult system. But when it comes to the edibles and the other things, all the packages and things you guys saw, so we're talking about the vaping carts, the candies, the brownies, all the different kinds of things, those kinds of things, you can't, it's a violation to possess it at 21 years of age and older. So from 18 to 21, it's a misdemeanor. At 21, it becomes a violation. And under those, again, you could subject yourself to what they call a delinquency petition, which is proceedings in the juvenile court. So that takes care of the personal use amounts of marijuana. We do have a medical marijuana law as well, and so for those that follow the medical marijuana law, I don't have much time, so I won't get into the details, but they are allowed to legally possess it under that, but otherwise, it is still illegal to possess it here in the state of New Hampshire. And the last thing I'm going to spend some time on is the social host criminal liability law. And it says here, a person who owns or has control of an occupied structure. So if you're the 22-year-old older brother or 25-year-old older brother and you have control of the house and the parents are away and you know that you're hosting an underage alcohol or drug party, that's something that still can happen to you. So it's control, not necessarily ownership. Where a drug or underage alcohol house party is being held and such person knowingly commits an overt act in furtherance of that, then that person, knowing that there's going to be people there under 21 consuming alcohol, or there's going to be people under 21 using drugs or minors, then that's where you're going to be guilty of that. Like I said, that's a misdemeanor offense. That's going to be charged as a Class A misdemeanor, and if not some actual stand committed time, there would definitely be some suspended jail time for an offense like that. However, there is an affirmative defense under the law, which I covered there. And it says here that if a person gives timely notice to law enforcement, to a law enforcement official the occurrence of the party or engages in other conduct designed to prevent it or takes action to terminate it once it's underway. So if you happen to show up and there's something going on that you didn't know about, you don't have to panic. If you take the steps to do what you need to do to shut it down, get law enforcement involved, make sure everybody's okay, then that's not going to result in any charges for you. So. I know I covered a lot real quick in and out, but any questions on that stuff? Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys.
That was very good.
Lightning round.
So those are all the things we used to cover in our My Choice Diversion program. So thank you very much, Lonnie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next. We have, we always tend to talk about what's happening. We provided you some information of why prevention is so important. We provided you with the law, but we also want to provide resources to the community. Raymond is very, very fortunate. We've gotten several grants for the needs that we have in our community, and our school district has been awarded, we've had it for several years now, a Student Assistance Program grant. And with that grant, we are very fortunate to have two amazing ladies that I get to work with, Abby Massey and Kristen Doherty. Abby is at the middle school and Kristen is at the high school. And they provide so many great resources to our community that I'm going to let them talk about it, but I have lots of great things to say about them. Abby will come up and tell us about the program, and then each of them are going to talk a little bit about what they see at each prospective school. So Abby?
All right. Hello, everybody. So with the Student Assistance Program, we do a lot of activities, a lot of education on drug and alcohol prevention, what it does to you, what it does to your families, what can it mean for the future, and we also do a lot of suicide prevention work as well, and I think both Kristen and I do copious amounts of counseling. So pretty much what I am finding here at the middle school is it's not a lot of, that I know of, drug issues. I find a lot of generational abuse, substance abuse with our families. However, on the other end of it, if a student were to get caught with alcohol or vape or drugs, it's an automatic 10-day suspension. However, they have the opportunity to meet with myself here at the middle school or Kristen at the high school for 5 days to get their suspension reduced to 5 days instead of 10 days. And what that looks like is just, prevention work, education, learning about themselves, learning about their family, what their family life is like, what routines they have, what supports they have, as well as just, providing resources and education to school and the communities. Did I miss anything?
Probably love it. Changing up the coping skills that may exist is
Yes.
a big part of it also.
So yeah, we do a lot of coping skills work where we have them find a way to do healthy coping skills, healthy ways to deal with stress, stress with work, stress with school, stress with family, stress with sports, other ways to kind of get themselves on the right path in a healthy way. So,
Nice.
thanks.
So I'm Kristen Dory, and I'm at the high school. I do a similar role as Abby. We've learned that we have different levels of our jobs. Over the last couple months of working together, we do a lot of teamwork together because sometimes what has come my way, she might start seeing there, and sometimes what she's seeing as trends at the middle school, we almost have to plan for.
Yeah.
So we work closely with the coalition and the behavioral health staff just to kind of put safeguards in place, make sure the kids are all getting the supports that they need, that they're aware of resources, that their families are connected to the supports they might need. And at the high school, what I'm seeing more of is the self-medicating. That tends to be the one that, it's a topic we don't all like to talk about, but especially I think with the recent shortages in certain prescriptions like Adderall and others, some youth are they're either going without it or they are having med changes.
Yeah,
So
affected
they're-
in different ways.
And they're affected in different ways. So you might see some behavioral differences or families trying to help them through it in a way that might be a temporary solution, but long-term it can lead to some severe consequences. So helping to provide some education, connecting them with the school health team, as well as the, other resources that are available within the community has been a really big part of that.
Yeah.
And also helping, sometimes the students we work with don't even know that they might be really great at something they've never tried before, and that can be successful also. So I do a lot of expressive art skills with my groups, and then we check in individually with the students just to make sure they have what they need. And I think that's a really big part of it, and the prevention education, which has been huge. And I actually mentioned to Celeste while you were speaking that we talked about, at the high school, we talked about experimentation today. And I met with about 30 freshmen today, and about 2 of them, according to the records, I was just checking my stats on it, 2 of them thought that maybe they are experimenting, but what was really refreshing is 12 out of the 30 were like really hard, like, okay, you know what, that's not experimenting, and I thought that was reassuring as far as the prevention education in the community goes.
Yeah.
We had 10 that were wishy-washy, but you always have to account for the peer factor. Who's looking, and so I'm feeling really reassured about some of the changes that we're seeing, and trying to prepare for what we may have not seen yet
I know. Yeah.
coming our way.
So we ended up going to a training in January, which I wish was in October, because we would have started this prevention ed series in October. I'm doing it with the 7th grade right now, and Kristen's doing it with the 9th grade. So I have planned to come into every 7th grade classroom, starting last week all the way through the last week of June, so the last week of school. Sorry, Sophia and Jordan. But it's, I've already been to Sophia's class. I'm going to Jordan's class tomorrow. And so we do a lot of activities, a lot of, discussions on, the effects of alcohol on your brain, on your body, and your family. So we're doing a lot of that. I am seeing a lot of work happening between the 6th and the 8th grade. My goal is to kind of come back down to 4th and 5th grade too, to kind of push out some activities for you guys. Because, the conversations need to start early about the effects of alcohol and drugs with the youth and their families. So
The outreach is becoming important also at the high school. I've been doing the prevention ed, as Abby said, with the freshmen. But it really goes it's almost a universal approach at the high school, because we're trying to bring in the prevention activities and have it be inclusive to everybody. And we drop little reminders off kind of when we hear that there's a new risk, and there's resources that we learn about. Abby and I both do bulletin boards, and we change them every month and we update the resources that are available. Some of the risks that are affiliated with different things. And it's getting to be, I guess, really well received. We even have students working with us on them. And you have this awesome wall that you did that you should share about.
no. Any questions? Hamilton? I don't know if you're done.
I think a piece of it that's important to say that if any of us in the community are concerned about a neighbor's child or our own child, and you can explain what the law is, but you can contact them and they can connect with that student. So if you were concerned about your neighbor John and something was going on with him, you could call the school and ask to speak with either Abby or Kristen and say, my neighbor John, something seems to be going on, not acting the same way, could you just check in on him? that would be the end of it as far as you're concerned, and they would check in with John and see, get him on track, make sure everything was okay. We can't know what the outcome of that was for privacy reasons, but we trust that something is being done to make sure John was okay. And that's a huge asset to our community. And if people don't feel like contacting the school for whatever reason, they can contact our office and give the information to me. I give it to them. I wouldn't even know who John is. I would just be passing it along to the two of them. But that's a resource. That would be a privacy thing that people, our goal is just to make sure kids are getting the help and the support that they need however they can get it.
I totally forgot. We were supposed to talk about the top 3 things in our schools that is going on, and I talked with Jordan and Sophie in the beginning, and something that we've seen a lot is social media, cyberbullying, and kind of cyber safety. We're trying to bring in a assembly in the second week of May around cyber safety. Because I think that's a pretty big problem, at least here. I'm sure there, because kids are just, talk about addiction. They're addicted to their phones, and they can, they have the power to hide behind a screen and say whatever they want, and they don't really know the consequences. There's negative consequences in school. There's scary people out there on the internet that who knows what they know. So that's something we're trying to work on in the middle school. So I just really hope that, from this message from us today, at least, is kind of put those boundaries and those parameters on your kids' cell phones and social media, because like you were saying too, a lot of the cartels are trying to make an addict with social media. So that's another big thing too.
Right.
So.
In the social media, the other aspect that we've been dealing with a lot with at the high school are the apps. Be aware of your kids' apps, what they're on, what they're doing, know what the terms are. And the kids need to know also, because sometimes they just see their friends on an app and they're not really sure what the app might be tied to. Ones that I've been recently concerned about are Omegle, which has been around for a while, but it has the capability of audio, the audio video, and so you don't always know when the phone's on or not, and they're sharing it, which means personal information can be identified by people you don't want to be identified with. Discord is the other one that I've been talking about, and a lot of the peer pressure that happens in school is a whole different level of peer pressure than I experienced.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Nicely older than I am.
I'm a little older than Abby. Yes, but anyway, it works to just be aware, make sure the kids are aware of the risks, and the families, because you think you're showing one Snapchat or one thing, and you don't know. Sometimes there's, the audio is on, and they can hear different information, and then the next thing you know, they're reaching out to another kid out.
Right. If it's on the internet, it's never going away.
Right.
So
be careful. Yeah. Be very careful. And, be safe. Remember, we're all part of the protective factors, for all of these kids. Not just the schools, the community.
Yeah, and sometimes we're what kids only have too, unfortunately. School is supposed to be their safe space for some, not necessarily home, and then school's starting to become a little dangerous. So.
Yeah.
We're just making you guys safe.
And like I said, we're always open. So give us a call, email, we'll check in. And Celeste mentioned the confidentiality. And that is, especially if it is surrounding substance use, even if it's concerns and you're not sure. Abby and I are pretty good about following up, and we will thank you and say, We'll definitely look into it, and if the kiddo needs anything, then, you know, we'll make sure the resources they need. And that's kind of the end of it. But we do look into it, and we have a lot of resources, and what you're referring to is 42, CFR 42, Part B, which is a federal law protecting students 12 and up, so that they get confidentiality and can get the supports that they need without fear of being stigmatized. Yeah. Any other questions? We good?
Any questions for either of them?
Don't ask that one.
No? Thank you. Okay, I want to introduce one other person who's in the room who's being very quiet and doesn't want to be on here. Sam Horgan is our behavioral health director. Behavioral Wellness. Director of Health and Wellness for the Raymond School District. And she is a great resource. We have Project Aware grant. And I have to say, we got the grant for our school district in 2020, and it was just in time when COVID hit. And I don't honestly know where we would be as a district without the services the grant has brought in. Sam is the leader of the grant right now. We have a district community leadership team, and it's just a great resource. So if anybody has any concerns or issues around behavioral health and wellness, we have a great team in our community right now who can help the kids, which is very exciting and important. We also want to make sure you know about resources, because whenever we talk about an issue, we want to make sure there's some support in place. On our website, rcfy.org, we have resource pages. We have pages talking about all the substances we talked about today. We have resources talking about where to go for help and support in regards to those. And we update our page because resources in the state of New Hampshire change, I think, weekly. not that often. But, we work with Unitas, which can help get people connected with housing and food services and mental health and substance misuse services. There's just a great amount of resources on there, so if anybody is in need. Does anybody have any questions for any of the presenters or our young people who are in the room? None? I would like to say a special thank you to our young people for being brave enough to come up and And I want to thank all of our speakers, Lonnie, Chief, Paul, and Abby, and Kristen. Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to Raymond TV also, and Art for taping this. It will be on our website and on Channel 22. Thank you all to all of you also for coming and spending some time with us tonight to learn about this important information. I hope you have a great night.